Chapter 1. The Assignment. Nora Hale stared at the email on her screen, her hazel eyes narrowing as she read the subject line for the third time. Confidential Project, Thorne Enterprises Due Diligence. She leaned back in her ergonomic chair, the soft hum of the open plan office at Hale & Associates fading into the background. At 26, Nora had clawed her way up from junior analyst to one of the firm's most trusted evaluators in just 4 years. She was good at spotting patterns, red flags, and hidden opportunities in balance sheets. But this assignment felt different. Her boss, Marcus Langford, had called her into his corner office an hour ago. No small talk, no preamble. Thorne Enterprises, he'd said, sliding a thin folder across the polished desk. Draken Thorne's empire. Tech, green energy, private equity holdings that seem to multiply overnight. The board wants to know if we should lead a $2 billion investment round, but the man's a black box. Financials are pristine, almost too pristine. We need someone inside. Nora had raised an eyebrow. Inside how? Marcus smiled the kind of smile that meant extra hours and zero glory if it went wrong. Executive assistant position just opened up. High turnover, apparently. You apply, you get it, you observe. 6 weeks, maybe 8. Full access to calendars, emails, secure files. You tell us if the numbers are real and if the man behind them is worth betting on. Now, sitting at her desk, Nora opened the folder again. A printout of the job listing, discreetly posted on an exclusive recruiting site, sat on top. Requirements: impeccable organization, discretion, ability to handle high-pressure environments, preferred experience with C-suite executives. She could do this in her sleep, but Draken Thorne wasn't just any CEO. Even Nora, who avoided gossip sites like the plague, knew the basics. Reclusive billionaire, rarely photographed smiling, built Thorne Enterprises from a shadowy startup into a global player in under a decade. No wife, no kids, no scandals, just rumors of a temper and an uncanny knack for being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. She pulled up a rare photo from a charity gala last year. There he was, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair slightly tousled as if he couldn't be bothered to tame it. Storm gray eyes stared straight at the camera like he was daring the world to try him. The kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or wanted posters. Nora exhaled slowly. Objectivity. That was the key. She wasn't there to swoon over a brooding billionaire. She was there to protect her firm's money and her own reputation. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Sadie. Dinner tonight? Or are you married to your spreadsheets again? Nora smiled faintly and typed back, big new project. Might be going radio silent for a bit. Rain check? She hit send, then opened a new document and began tailoring her resume. Every bullet point sharpened, every achievement quantified. She attached a professional headshot, chestnut waves pulled back, subtle makeup, confident half-smile. By the time she submitted the application, the office lights had dimmed and most of her colleagues were gone. Nora lingered a moment, staring at the confirmation email. Thank you for your interest in Thorne Enterprises. We will be in touch shortly. Her pulse kicked up a notch, not from fear, but from the thrill of the challenge. Draken Thorne thought his world was impenetrable. He'd never met anyone quite like her. She shut down her computer, grabbed her coat, and stepped into the cool January night. Somewhere across the city, in a glass tower that touched the clouds, a dragon waited, though Nora didn't know that yet. All she knew was that the game had just begun. Chapter 2. The Interview. Nora stepped out of the elevator on the 82nd floor of the Thorne Enterprises tower and felt the air change. It wasn't just the altitude, it was quieter up here, as though the city's noise couldn't reach this high. The lobby was all glass and black marble, sleek and cold, with a single reception desk that looked more like a piece of modern art than furniture. A woman in a charcoal suit glanced up. Ms. Hale, Mr. Thorne will see you now. Already? Nora had expected the usual corporate gauntlet: HR screening, skills tests, maybe a panel of junior executives. Instead, she was being escorted straight to the top. The assistant led her down a hallway lined with abstract paintings in muted silvers and deep blues. At the end, double doors stood slightly ajar. Nora caught a glimpse of floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Manhattan skyline, gray winter clouds pressing low against the glass. She straightened her blazer, smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her pencil skirt, and stepped inside. Draken Thorne was standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out over the city like he owned every inch of it, which, in a way, he did. He didn't turn immediately. The silence stretched just long enough to feel deliberate. Then he faced her. Nora had seen photos, but they hadn't prepared her for the sheer presence of the man. He was taller than she'd expected, easily 6'4", with broad shoulders that filled out a perfectly tailored navy suit. Dark hair fell just enough out of place to look intentional. And those eyes, stormy gray-blue, sharp enough to cut glass. "Ms. Hale." His voice was low, resonant, with a faint rasp that made her name sound like a challenge. "Have a seat." He gestured to one of two leather chairs in front of a massive obsidian desk. No clutter. Just a closed laptop, a single folder, and a sleek pen aligned precisely parallel to the edge. Nora sat, crossing her legs at the ankle. She met his gaze evenly. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice, Mr. Thorne." He moved to his chair with fluid grace and sat, leaning back slightly. For a long moment, he simply studied her. Not in a creepy way. More like he was cataloging details, testing reactions. Nora held still under the scrutiny. She'd faced intimidating clients before. She could handle this. "You have an impressive resume," he said finally. "Top of your class at Wharton. Fast-tracked at Hale & Associates. References that border on glowing." A faint curve touched one corner of his mouth, not quite a smile. Almost too perfect. Nora kept her expression neutral. "I work hard. That's evident." He opened the folder, her resume, she realized, and scanned it again, though she suspected he'd already memorized every line. "Why do you want this position?" Direct. Good. She'd prepared for that. "I'm looking for a new challenge," she said. "Your company is at the forefront of sustainable tech integration. I want to be part of something that's changing the landscape, literally and figuratively. And I've heard you demand excellence from your team. I thrive in that kind of environment." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Excellence, yes. I also demand absolute loyalty and discretion. This isn't a stepping stone job, Ms. Hale. My assistants don't last long if they can't keep up. I've heard the turnover is high," she thought, but didn't say. Instead, "I don't scare easily." Something flickered in his expression. Interest, maybe, or amusement. "Tell me about a time you had to handle sensitive information under pressure." Nora launched into a carefully rehearsed story about a merger due diligence where confidentiality had been paramount. She kept details vague enough to protect her firm, but specific enough to show competence. Draken listened without interrupting, his gaze never leaving her face. When she finished, he leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "One more question." She waited. "What do you know about me?" The question caught her off guard, but she didn't let it show. "You built Thorne Enterprises from a private investment firm into a multi-billion-dollar leader in green energy and advanced materials. You prefer privacy. You donate generously but quietly to conservation efforts. And you have a reputation for being demanding." A real smile ghosted across his lips this time, brief but devastating. Demanding. That's diplomatic. He stood abruptly, and Nora rose as well. For a moment, they were closer than interview protocol usually allowed. She caught a subtle scent. Cedar, smoke, something indefinably warm. "You'll hear from us by end of day," he said. That was it? No, "we have other candidates," or "we'll be in touch in a week"? Just, End of day? Nora extended her hand. Thank you for your time. His grip was firm, warm, his hand engulfing hers. For a split second, something electric passed between them, like static, but deeper. His eyes darkened almost imperceptibly. Then he released her. As she turned to leave, she felt his gaze on her back the entire way to the door. Only when the elevator doors closed did she let out a slow breath. Draken Thorne was every bit as intimidating as rumored. And if she was honest with herself, far more compelling. Back in his office, Draken stood at the window again, watching the tiny figure of Nora Hale emerge onto the street far below. His dragon stirred restlessly beneath his skin, an ancient instinct he hadn't felt in centuries. Interesting. It rumbled. Very interesting. Chapter 3. First Day. Nora arrived at the Thorne Enterprises Tower at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than the 8 o'clock start time listed in the crisp welcome email she'd received late Friday night. The lobby was already alive with quiet efficiency. Security guards nodding politely, early executives striding toward private elevators, the faint scent of expensive coffee drifting from a hidden cafe. She wore her most trusted armor, a tailored black blazer over a silk ivory blouse, slim charcoal trousers, and low heels that clicked confidently across the marble. Her chestnut waves were pulled into a sleek, low ponytail. Professional, understated, ready for anything. The same assistant from the interview, Elena, her badge red, met her at reception and handed over a sleek black keycard. Welcome to the team, Miss Hale. Mr. Thorne expects punctuality. Elevator C, straight to 82. Nora smiled. Thank you. And it's Nora. Elena's expression softened a fraction. Good luck, Nora. The ride-up was silent except for the soft hum of the elevator. When the doors opened, the top floor felt even more imposing in daylight. Sunlight poured through the massive windows, turning the space into a gleaming cathedral of glass and steel. Her desk sat just outside Draken's office doors, a modern station of dark wood and brushed metal, equipped with dual monitors, a phone console that looked like it could launch satellites, and a single white orchid in a minimalist vase. Someone had already placed a leather-bound planner and a Thorne Enterprises mug beside the keyboard. Nora set down her bag, logged in with the temporary credentials HR had emailed, and took a steadying breath. Day 1. Observe. Listen. Stay objective. At exactly 8 o'clock, the double doors opened. Draken Thorne filled the doorway, coffee in one hand, tablet in the other. He wore a charcoal suit today, crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie. The casual touch only emphasized how effortlessly he commanded the space. Good morning, he said, voice low and even. Those storm gray eyes swept over her desk, lingering on the untouched mug. Settling in? Yes, thank you. Nora stood. I've already reviewed today's calendar. You have the 9:30 with the Tokyo team, 11 with legal on the Meridian acquisition, lunch with the conservation board at 12:30. He lifted a brow. You work fast. I like to be prepared. A faint nod of approval. Coffee. I can get it. I asked if you drink it. He moved toward a hidden panel in the wall that slid open to reveal a state-of-the-art espresso machine. Black, 1 shot, she said. He keyed in the order without looking away from her. You'll need it. Today will be long. 2 cups appeared in the machine's dispenser. He handed her one. Perfectly brewed, no splash, no fuss, then gestured toward his office. Bring your tablet. We'll go over the week. Nora followed him inside. The office was even more impressive up close. Panoramic views on 3 sides, a massive desk, a seating area with leather couches, and built-in bookshelves lined with rare volumes and what looked like ancient artifacts displayed under soft lighting. One item caught her eye, a small, iridescent black scale encased in glass. Odd decor for a tech CEO. Draken sat behind the desk and motioned for her to take the chair opposite. First rule, he said. Nothing leaves this floor without my approval. Emails, files, conversations. Discretion is non-negotiable. Understood. Second rule, if you don't know, ask. I don't have time for guesswork. She nodded. He tapped his tablet, pulling up a complex schedule color-coded in ways she hadn't seen yet. You'll manage this calendar, screen calls, coordinate travel, and sit in on most meetings. You'll also handle sensitive correspondence, NDAs, encrypted drives, the occasional off-books request. Off-books. Nora filed that away. The morning blurred into a whirlwind. By 9, she was on a video call translating rapid Japanese investor questions while Draken answered in flawless fluency. At 10:30, she drafted revisions to a contract under his precise instructions. Every task came with exacting standards, but he never raised his voice. Just corrected, expected improvement, moved on. Around 11:45, as she finalized notes from the legal meeting, Draken's private line rang. He glanced at the screen, expression tightening almost imperceptibly, then silenced it. A minute later, it rang again. Same number. He exhaled through his nose and answered in a language Nora didn't recognize. Guttural, ancient-sounding, with a cadence that sent a shiver down her spine. The conversation was brief, clipped. When he ended the call, his jaw was set. Change of plans, he said. Lunch is canceled. Order something up for both of us. Steak, rare. Vegetables if you want them. Nora didn't blink at the abruptness. Any allergies or preferences for me to note? He looked at her then, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time that day. You eat meat? Yes. Good. A pause. Make it 2 steaks. She placed the order through an internal concierge system, then returned to her desk to field a flurry of mails. Amid the routine requests, one caught her attention. A heavily encrypted message from an address ending in @ancientorder.org. Subject line blank. She flagged it for Draken without opening it. Protocol. At 12:30, food arrived via private elevator. Nora carried the trays into his office. He was standing at the window again, phone to his ear, speaking in that same unfamiliar language. When he saw her, he ended the call. They ate in silence at the small conference table near the couch. The steak was perfect. So was the quiet. Finally, Draken spoke. You're doing well. High praise, coming from him. Nora allowed herself a small smile. Thank you. He studied her over the rim of his coffee cup. Most people are nervous on their first day. I'm not most people. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition maybe, or challenge. No, he said quietly. You're not. Outside, snow began to fall over the city, soft flakes drifting past the windows. Inside, Nora felt the first real spark of curiosity ignite. Whatever secrets Draken Thorne was keeping, they were closer than she'd expected. And she was only getting started. Chapter 4. Hidden Truths. Nora's second week blurred into a rhythm of controlled chaos. Mornings began with black coffee and calendar triage. Afternoons dissolved into back-to-back meetings, encrypted emails, and the occasional cryptic instruction from Draken that left her piecing together context like a puzzle. She was good at puzzles. By Wednesday of that week, she'd already memorized the quirks of his schedule. The blocked-out Thursdays labeled only private, no disturbances. The recurring late-night video calls with contacts in Europe who never showed their faces on screen, and the way certain financial reports were routed directly to a secure server she didn't yet have access to. Access she intended to earn. That afternoon, Draken was in a closed-door session with the board. Nora used the rare quiet to organize the physical files he still preferred for high-value deals. Old school in a digital empire. A locked drawer in the credenza behind her desk held the sensitive ones. He'd given her the key on day 3 with a single warning: open only what I tell you to open. So far, he hadn't told her to open any of them. Curiosity, however, was a powerful motivator. She wasn't reckless enough to force the lock, not yet, but she did notice something odd when she filed a new acquisition folder that morning. The drawer hadn't clicked fully shut. A sliver of space remained, just enough to glimpse the edge of a leather-bound ledger that didn't match the standard corporate binders. Nora glanced toward Draken's closed doors. Voices murmured faintly, still deep in discussion. She hesitated only a second before easing the drawer open another inch. Inside, atop the expected contracts, sat the ledger. Its cover was dark, worn, embossed with a symbol she didn't recognize, an intricate coil that looked almost like a dragon devouring its own tail. The pages were thick, handmade paper, edges gilded, definitely not standard office supply. Heart beating a little faster, Nora lifted it just enough to see the top page. Handwritten entries in a bold, elegant script, dates stretching back decades, amounts in the hundreds of millions, annotations in that same unfamiliar language Draken had used on the phone. One column was labeled Hoard Allocation, another, Clan Tithe. Clan? She wondered out loud. She flipped one page. A sketch of what looked like a black scale, identical to the one displayed in his office, accompanied a note, yield stable, veil intact. Nora? The ledger nearly slipped from her fingers. She slid it back into place and shut the drawer with a soft click just as Draken emerged from his office. Suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms corded with muscle. He paused, eyes narrowing slightly as they flicked from her face to the credenza and back. Everything all right? Fine, she said, proud that her voice stayed steady. Just filing the Meridian docs? He studied her for a beat longer than comfortable. Nora met his gaze, hazel eyes calm, expression neutral. Whatever he saw, or didn't see, must have satisfied him because he nodded. Good. I need you to pull the conservation endowment reports from last quarter. Full financials. On it. As he returned to his office, Nora exhaled slowly. Close. Too close. But the glimpse had given her more questions than answers. Hoard, clan, veil. Either Draken Thorne was deeply involved in some eccentric role-playing society, or there was something far stranger at play. Later that evening, long after most of the building had emptied, Nora stayed late to finish a presentation Draken needed for a dawn investor call. The top floor was silent except for the distant hum of the city below and the soft click of her keyboard. Draken appeared in his doorway, tie loosened, holding 2 glasses of amber liquid. Join me. It wasn't phrased as a question. Nora saved her work and followed him to the seating area by the windows. Snow had started again, fat flakes swirling in the floodlights far below. He handed her a glass. Scotch, expensive, smooth fire down her throat. You've been here 10 days, he said, settling into the opposite couch. Impressions? She considered her words carefully. The company is run with military precision. The numbers are exceptional, almost suspiciously so. Growth patterns don't follow typical market cycles. One dark brow lifted. Suspiciously. Exceptional, she corrected with a small smile. But patterns that consistent usually mean either genius or something being managed very carefully off the books. He took a slow sip, watching her over the rim. And which do you think it is? I haven't decided yet. A low sound rumbled in his chest, almost a laugh. Honest, I like that. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, city lights glittering beyond the glass. Then he asked, quieter, what else have you noticed? Nora's pulse kicked. Was this a test? That you work harder than anyone here, she said, that you don't trust easily, and that you have interests that don't make it into Forbes profiles. His eyes darkened, something ancient flickering behind the storm gray. Careful, Nora. Curiosity can be dangerous. She held his gaze. So can secrets. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Then Draken stood, setting his glass down with deliberate care. Finish the presentation, go home. We have an early morning. Dismissed, but not scolded. Nora rose, gathering her composure. At the door, she paused. Good night, Mr. Thorne. He didn't reply immediately. When he did, his voice was low, almost rough. Good night, Nora. She left his office, heart racing for reasons she didn't want to examine too closely. Back at her desk, she reopened the Meridian file, but her mind was on the locked drawer, the strange ledger, and the man who guarded secrets like treasure. Whatever Draken Thorne was hiding, it was bigger than financial irregularities. And Nora Hale had always been very good at uncovering the truth. Chapter 5. The Fake Fiancée Proposal. Nora was finishing the last slide of an investor deck when the alert pinged on her monitor. Urgent. Boardroom A, now. It was 6:47 p.m. on a Friday. Most of the executive floor had emptied hours ago. Draken had been locked in back-to-back calls since noon, voice growing progressively lower and more clipped with each one. She saved the file, grabbed her tablet, and headed down the hall. The boardroom doors were closed, but muffled voices leaked through, several men, one woman, all speaking in that same ancient tongue she'd heard Draken use before. The conversation stopped the instant she reached for the handle. Draken opened the door himself a second later. His tie was gone, top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, and his expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. Come in, he said quietly. Inside, 4 people sat around the long obsidian table, 3 men and 1 woman, all impossibly striking, all watching her with unnerving intensity. They looked like they'd stepped out of a high-fashion editorial. Sharp cheekbones, flawless skin, eyes that seemed to catch the light in unnatural ways. The woman's gaze was especially cold, silver gray and assessing. Draken didn't introduce them. Instead, he gestured for Nora to take the chair beside him. We're done here, he told the others in English, tone final. The oldest man, silver-haired but ageless, leaned forward. We will speak again tomorrow, Draken. The elders expect progress. Draken's jaw tightened. You'll have it. The group rose in unison and left without another word. The woman lingered last, her gaze flicking dismissively over Nora before she disappeared down the hall. The door clicked shut. Nora waited. She'd learned quickly that Draken spoke when ready, and not before. He didn't sit. Instead, he moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the darkening city. Snow had turned to sleet, streaking the glass in silver lines. There's a situation, he said finally. 2, actually. Nora stayed quiet. First, a hostile takeover bid is being prepared. A consortium led by Victor Kane. He's been circling for years. This time, he has backing enough to make it serious. If it goes through, Thorne Enterprises loses autonomy. Certain assets would be exposed. Assets. Like whatever was in that ledger. Second, he continued, voice rougher, my family elders are pressuring me to secure an alliance. A permanent one. They believe instability at the top invites attack. Nora's brow furrowed. A marriage? He turned then, eyes locking on hers. Essentially. She blinked. Congratulations? A humorless huff escaped him. It's not that simple. I've refused arranged matches for centuries. They're losing patience. Centuries. The word hung in the air, absurd and impossible, yet somehow not surprising coming from him. Nora folded her hands in her lap. How does this involve me? Draken crossed the room in 3 strides and sat on the edge of the table directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint tension in his shoulders. I need a shield, he said. Temporary, public, undeniable. She stared at him. You want to pretend we're, dating? Engaged. The word dropped between them like a stone. Nora laughed, one short, incredulous sound, then stopped when she saw he was completely serious. You're joking. I'm not. He leaned forward slightly. A public engagement would stabilize the stock price, deter Kane's investors, and buy me time with the elders. 6 months, maybe less. After the threats are neutralized, we end it quietly. No harm, no scandal. Nora stood, needing distance. She paced to the windows, mind racing. Why me? Because you're already inside. You know parts of the truth. You're intelligent, discreet, and... He paused. You don't bore me. She turned. That's not a reason to fake marry someone. It's one of them. His gaze didn't waver. There's another. My instincts say I can trust you. That's rare. Instincts. The same ones that had made him watch her too closely from day one. And if I say no, he inclined his head. You walk away tonight. Keep your job, or leave with a severance package generous enough to let you start your own firm. No hard feelings. Nora studied him. The offer was insane, yet calculated. He wasn't begging. He was presenting a business proposition wrapped in personal stakes. What exactly would it entail? Public appearances, a ring. You'd move into the penthouse, separate rooms, of course. We sell the story. Whirlwind office romance, love at first sight, whatever the tabloids want to print. In private, nothing changes. You continue your work. I protect your reputation. Protect. The word carried weight coming from him. She crossed her arms. And my actual assignment, the due diligence? Draken's expression didn't flicker. Still yours to complete. I have nothing to hide from a legitimate investment. A pause. But some truths are larger than financial statements. Nora's pulse thrummed in her ears. This was madness, career suicide, or the kind of opportunity undercover operatives dreamed of. She should say no. Instead, she heard herself ask, what's the timeline? Announcement Monday, gala tomorrow night, our first appearance as a couple, rings already chosen. Of course it was. She exhaled slowly. I need to think. Take tonight. He stood, moving close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. But Nora, whatever you decide, know this. If you say yes, I will keep you safe. No one touches what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent heat curling through her despite herself. She nodded once, then left the boardroom on steady legs that didn't feel steady at all. In the elevator, ride down, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Careful, little human. Some fires burn hotter than you can handle. Nora stared at the screen, a chill racing down her spine. The game had just gotten a lot more dangerous. And she hadn't even said yes yet. Chapter 6. Sealing the deal. Nora stood in the private elevator of Draken's penthouse building, clutching a garment bag and an overnight case, heart hammering against her ribs. She had said yes. It had taken most of a sleepless Friday night, 3 deleted texts to Sadie, and 1 long stare at her reflection in the mirror at 4 a.m. before the word finally formed. Not because the threats felt real, though that anonymous text still chilled her. And not because the money he'd quietly offered to cover any career fallout was obscene. She'd said yes, because refusing felt like walking away from the biggest story she'd ever touched, professional or personal. And because some reckless part of her wanted to know how deep Draken Thorne's secrets went. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse foyer. Dark marble floors, soaring ceilings, and a wall of windows showcasing the glittering expanse of Central Park under a thin blanket of snow. Everything smelled faintly of cedar and smoke. Draken was waiting. He wore black trousers and a charcoal cashmere sweater that did unfair things to his shoulders. No suit tonight. The casual look made him seem even larger, more elemental. You came, he said quietly. I said I would. A nod. No smile, but something in his eyes softened. This way. He led her through the open living area, sleek, masculine, with touches of old-world luxury, leather-bound books, a massive stone fireplace already lit, and more of those glass-encased artifacts that looked suspiciously like scales and ancient coins. They stopped at a wide hallway. "Guest wing is yours," he said, opening a door. "Completely private. Your things were delivered this morning." Nora stepped inside. The suite was bigger than her entire apartment. King bed dressed in ivory linens, sitting area with park views, a dressing room already holding the garment bag his stylist had sent over yesterday. On the dresser sat a black velvet box, the ring. Draken stayed in the doorway. "Try it on. If it doesn't fit, we'll adjust before tonight." She opened the box. Nestled inside was a stunning solitaire, flawless diamond, at least 5 carats, set in platinum with subtle etching along the band that looked almost like scales. Understated for a billionaire, yet unmistakably rare. Nora slipped it onto her left hand. Perfect fit. Of course it was. She looked up. Draken's gaze was fixed on the ring, something fierce and possessive flickering across his face before he banked it. "It suits you," he said, voice rougher than usual. Nora flexed her fingers, the weight of the diamond foreign and thrilling. "Ground rules," she said. "Before we sign anything." He inclined his head. "Of course." They moved to the living room. A small stack of papers waited on the coffee table. An NDA, engagement contract, even a scripted press release. All prepared by his legal team. Efficient, as always. Nora sat on the leather couch, tucking one leg beneath her. First, no physical intimacy beyond what's necessary for public appearances. Hand-holding, arm around waist, that kind of thing. Nothing more. Agreed. No hesitation. Second, I keep working. Full access to files, meetings, everything. If I'm risking my career for this, I finish the due diligence properly. Done. Third, when it ends cleanly. Joint statement about growing apart, no mudslinging. And you help me land wherever I want next. He met her eyes. You have my word. Something in the way he said it, ancient, solemn, made her believe him completely. Draken slid a pen across the table. Nora signed where indicated, her signature steady. When he signed beneath hers, the scratch of the pen sounded unnaturally loud. Contract sealed. He set the pen down and leaned back, studying her. Gala starts at 8. Black tie. Conservation endowment will be photographed heavily. First official appearance. Nora nodded. I read the brief. I won't embarrass you. I'm not worried about that. A pause. The people who texted you last night, they're connected to the elders. They'll be watching tonight. Testing. A chill skated down her spine. Testing how? Looking for weakness, trying to see if you're suitable. Suitable for what exactly, he didn't say. Nora lifted her chin. Let them look. A slow, approving smile curved his mouth, the first real one she'd ever seen from him. It transformed his face, making him look younger, almost boyish for a fleeting second. Good, he said. He rose and extended a hand. Come. You should eat something before we leave. She placed her hand in his. The contact was brief, but warmth lingered on her skin long after he let go. An hour later, Nora stood in front of the full-length mirror in her dressing room, barely recognizing herself. The gown was midnight blue silk, off the shoulder, fitted through the bodice and flowing into a soft train. Simple, elegant, and expensive in the way only truly expensive things can be. Her chestnut waves were swept into a low chignon, diamond studs at her ears, borrowed from Draken's vault apparently. She turned as he appeared in the doorway, now in a flawless black tuxedo. He stilled, eyes darkening as they traveled over her. You look... He seemed to search for the word. Perfect. Heat rose in her cheeks. Thank you. You clean up well yourself. He offered his arm. Ready? Nora slipped her hand through the crook of his elbow, feeling the hard muscle beneath the fabric, as I'll ever be. In the private elevator down to the waiting car, Draken leaned close, voice low near her ear. From now on, in public, you're mine. Let me lead. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. The doors opened to flashing cameras and a roar of questions. Showtime. As they stepped out into the cold January night, Draken's hand settled at the small of her back, warm, steady, unmistakably claiming. And for the first time since saying yes, Nora wondered if 6 months would be anywhere near enough. Chapter 7. Living the lie. The flash of cameras hit them the moment the car door opened. Nora had been to galas before. Charity events for work, nothing on this scale. But nothing prepared her for the wall of sound and light that greeted them outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Reporters shouted questions, bulbs popped in rapid fire, and a velvet rope barely held back the crowd. Draken's hand stayed firm at the small of her back, guiding her up the snow-dusted steps with a calm that bordered on regal. He leaned down just enough for his voice to reach her ear over the chaos. Smile like you're happy to be here. Breathe through your nose. I've got you. She did smile, genuine enough thanks to the warmth of his palm against the silk of her gown, and let him lead her through the gauntlet. Mr. Thorne, who's your date? Draken, over here. Is it serious? He ignored them all, nodding only to the security team as they slipped inside the grand entrance hall. The doors closed behind them, muffling the frenzy to a distant hum. Inside was no less opulent, crystal chandeliers, evergreen boughs wrapped in white lights, the low murmur of the ultra-wealthy mingling over champagne flutes. A string quartet played something classical and soaring. Draken accepted 2 glasses from a passing waiter and handed her one. Phase 1 complete. They got their photos. Nora took a sip, letting the bubbles settle her nerves. Phase 2? Convince the room we're madly in love. He said it so matter-of-factly she almost laughed. Easy enough. Just gaze adoringly into my eyes and call me darling every 5 minutes. A corner of his mouth lifted. I was planning on brooding possessively and keeping you close. More my style. Before she could reply, a woman approached. Tall, willowy, with ice blonde hair swept into an elegant twist and a silver gown that looked poured onto her body. Her smile was perfect, sharp, and entirely unfriendly. Draken, she purred, voice like chilled silk. You've been hiding. Draken's posture shifted subtly. Shoulders squaring, hand tightening almost imperceptibly at Nora's waist. Leora. So this was the woman from the boardroom, the one who'd looked at Nora like she was an insect. Leora's gaze slid to Nora, lingering on the ring with calculated surprise. And this must be the assistant I've heard about? Nora extended her hand, smile polite. Nora Hale, lovely to meet you. Leora's handshake was cool and brief. Charmed, she turned back to Draken. The elders send their regards. They're eager for an introduction. They'll have it in due time, Draken said, tone flat. Leora's eyes narrowed a fraction. Time is the one thing you're running out of, darling. She let the endearment linger like a barb, then glided away into the crowd. Nora exhaled. Ex-girlfriend? Something like that. He guided her toward the main hall. She's the elder's envoy, here to observe. Observe what exactly? You, he said quietly, whether you're worthy. Nora's stomach tightened. Of a fake engagement? Of more than that. He didn't elaborate. They moved through the room like a practiced couple, Draken introducing her smoothly to donors and board members, his hand never leaving her back or her arm. Every touch was light, respectful, yet undeniably claiming. When someone asked how they met, he told a polished version of the truth. She walked into my office for an interview and never really left. Nora played along, laughing softly, leaning into him just enough. The ring caught the light every time she gestured, drawing gasps and congratulations. By the time they reached the balcony for a breath of cold air, her cheeks hurt from smiling. Draken closed the glass door behind them, muting the party to a distant hum. Snow drifted lazily beyond the railing. You're doing well, he said. High praise. She sipped the last of her champagne. Leora's charming. She's dangerous. He leaned against the balustrade, hands in his pockets. She was promised to me once, centuries ago. I refused. Nora turned to face him. Centuries? He met her eyes, something raw flickering there. There are things I need to tell you, Nora, soon, but not here. The intensity in his voice sent warmth curling through her despite the January chill. She nodded. When you're ready. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see snowflakes melting in his dark hair. Slowly, deliberately, he brushed a stray strand from her cheek, fingers lingering against her skin. In public, he murmured, "This is allowed." Then he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek, close to the corner of her mouth, warm and lingering just long enough to make her breath catch. When he pulled back, his eyes had darkened. "For the cameras," he said, but his voice was rougher than before. Nora touched the spot lightly, pulse racing. "Right, cameras." They returned inside a moment later, but the feel of his lips stayed with her the rest of the night. Later, in the car on the way home, headlines were already exploding across social media. Dragon of Wall Street engaged? Who is Draken Thorne's mystery fiancée? So, billionaire off the market, and she's stunning. Draken scrolled through a few on his phone, then locked the screen. "Tomorrow, the real work begins," he said. "The elders will want to meet you. Leora will push harder." Nora looked out at the city lights blurring past. "Let her push." He glanced at her, something like pride in his expression. "That's my girl." The words were quiet, meant for the pretense, but the way her heart stuttered at them felt anything but pretend. Back in the penthouse, Nora slipped off her heels in the foyer and padded toward the guest wing. Draken caught her wrist gently before she reached the hallway. "Thank you," he said. "For tonight. For all of this." She looked up at him, tall, powerful, impossibly alone despite the crowds he commanded. "You're welcome," she whispered. For a moment, neither moved. Then he released her, stepping back. "Good night, Nora." "Good night, Draken." She closed her bedroom door and leaned against it, ring glinting in the low light. 6 months, she reminded herself. But as she drifted to sleep, the memory of his kiss on her cheek lingered like a promise of fire to come. Chapter 8. Enter Leora. Monday morning brought a storm of media requests and stock volatility. Thorne Enterprises shares jumped 7% on the stability of Draken's sudden engagement, while gossip sites dissected every photo from the gala. Nora's inbox overflowed with interview requests she forwarded straight to PR. She arrived at the office early, dressed in a sharp cream sheath dress and blazer. Professional armor for whatever came next. Draken was already there, sleeves rolled up, reviewing reports at his desk. He glanced up as she entered with coffee. "Morning," she said, setting his cup down. "You look like you didn't sleep." "Dragons don't need much." The quip slipped out before he seemed to catch himself. He cleared his throat. "Elders want dinner tonight. Private venue. Just them. Leora and us." Nora's stomach dipped. "Introduction time?" "First test," he corrected. "They'll be polite. Leora won't." She nodded, hiding her nerves. "What should I expect?" "Questions about lineage, loyalty, strength. They'll probe for weakness." He stood, moving close enough to adjust the collar of her blazer with careful fingers. "You don't have to prove anything to them. Just be yourself." The touch lingered a second longer than necessary. Nora felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I can handle polite probing." His mouth curved faintly. "I know." The day passed in a blur of work, Nora finalizing reports while fielding curious glances from staff who'd seen the headlines. By evening, a black SUV whisked them to a secluded townhouse on the Upper East Side, all brick and ivy, unmarked and unassuming. Inside, the atmosphere was anything but. A long mahogany table was set for 6 in a dining room lit by a single, massive chandelier. The 4 elders waited, 3 men, 1 woman, all radiating the same ageless authority Nora had glimpsed before. Leora stood near the fireplace, in a sleek emerald gown, wineglass in hand, smiling like a cat who'd cornered a mouse. "Draken," the silver-haired elder greeted, voice warm but edged. "And this must be the human causing such excitement." Draken's hand settled at Nora's back. "Nora Hale, my fiancée." Nora extended her hand to each elder in turn, meeting their assessing gazes with steady calm. The woman, Ilara, she introduced herself, held Nora's grip a fraction longer, eyes sharp. "Charmed," Ilara said. "We've heard so much already." Dinner began with exquisite courses served by silent staff. Conversation stayed light at first. Conservation efforts, market trends, the weather. Draken dominated when needed, his deep voice steering topics away from danger zones. Then Leora leaned forward, silver eyes glinting. "Nora, dear, tell us about your family. Old money? New? Or something more modest?" The question was a velvet-gloved jab. Nora smiled pleasantly. "Modest," she said. "My parents are teachers, public school. They taught me hard work and integrity beat inheritance every time." One elder raised a brow. Leora sipped her wine. "How quaint," she murmured. "And your bloodline? Any notable ancestors? European nobility, perhaps?" Nora set down her fork. "Irish and Italian immigrants mostly. Farmers, scholars, a few soldiers. Nothing noble, unless you count surviving famine and wars." A soft chuckle escaped Draken, quickly masked. Leora's smile thinned. "Fascinating. Humans do love their survival stories." The silver-haired elder, Thorne, leaned in. "And your intentions toward Draken?" "He carries great responsibility. His mate must be equal to it." Nora met his gaze directly. "My intention is to support him, challenge him when needed, and build something real. I'm not here for money or status. I'm here because I choose to be." Draken's hand found hers under the table, fingers threading through hers in silent approval. Ilara tilted her head. "Choice is admirable, but strength is proven, not declared." Leora jumped in smoothly. "Indeed. Perhaps a small demonstration. Tradition holds that a potential mate should understand our ways." Draken's grip tightened. "Not tonight." Thorne lifted a hand. "A harmless test, Draken. Nothing more." Before Nora could ask what that meant, Leora rose gracefully and crossed to a side table. She returned with a small crystal decanter filled with dark liquid. "A simple draft," she said, pouring a thimble-sized amount into an empty glass and sliding it toward Nora. "Distilled from nightshade and dragon root. Harmless to us. To humans, revealing." Draken surged to his feet. "Enough!" Thorne's voice cut like steel. "Sit, Draken. She must show willingness if she is to stand beside you." Nora stared at the glass. Nightshade. Poisonous to humans in large doses. Even diluted, this could be dangerous. But refusing might end everything. The engagement, the alliance, maybe even Draken's position. She looked at Draken. His jaw was granite, eyes blazing with barely leashed fury. "It's your choice," he said quietly. "Always." Nora picked up the glass. The table went silent. She held Leora's gaze. "If this is what it takes to prove I'm not afraid of your world, fine." Leora's smile faltered for the first time. Nora raised the glass in a mock toast. "To truth." Then, before anyone could react, she tipped the contents not into her mouth, but onto the white tablecloth. The dark liquid spread like ink, hissing faintly as it ate through the fabric and scorched the wood beneath. Gas rippled around the table. Nora set the empty glass down calmly. "I took chemistry in college. Dragon root reacts with silver nitrate, turns black and corrosive. You lace the decanter with it to fake a reaction. Cute trick. But I'm not drinking poison to entertain you." Dead silence. Then Thorne threw back his head and laughed. A deep, genuine sound. The other elders followed, tension dissolving like mist. "Resourceful. Alara said, eyes sparkling with approval. And bold. Leora's face was a mask of fury, but she said nothing. Draken looked at Nora like she'd hung the moon. Thorne raised his glass. To Nora Hale, who may yet prove worthy after all. They drank. Leora did not. Later, in the car riding home, snow falling thick and silent, Draken reached for her hand again, this time above the seat, not hidden. You were magnificent, he said, voice low. Nora's adrenaline was still crashing. I bluffed. I had no idea about silver nitrate. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a warm kiss to her knuckles. You didn't need to. You trusted your instincts. That's rarer than any potion. She shivered, not from cold. Back in the penthouse, he walked her to her door. Good night, Nora. But this time, she didn't let go of his hand right away. Good night, Draken. The space between them hummed with unspoken things. And for the first time, the lie felt dangerously close to the truth. Chapter 9. Sabotage. The week following the elders' dinner felt like walking a tightrope in a windstorm. Media attention had intensified. Paparazzi outside the tower, tabloid headlines speculating about wedding dates, designers already sending sketches to Nora's new publicist. At work, whispers followed her down hallways. Congratulations, mixed with curiosity and a few envious glares. But the real storm was brewing elsewhere. It started small. Tuesday morning, Nora opened her laptop to find the investor presentation she'd spent 3 late nights perfecting. Corrupted, slides scrambled, data tables blank, footnotes replaced with random symbols. The autosave history was wiped clean. She stared at the screen, stomach sinking. She'd backed it up on the secure server. Or thought she had. Draken appeared in her doorway 10 minutes later, coffee in hand, expression darkening as she explained. It's looking into it, she said. Could be a glitch. It's not. His voice was quiet steel. Leora has access codes. She's done this before. He didn't elaborate on when or to whom. By afternoon, IT confirmed. Deliberate overwrite from an external login masked through the guest network. Untraceable, but timed perfectly for the Tokyo investor call the file was meant for. Draken handled the call anyway, flawless off the cuff. Numbers recited from memory, but Nora saw the tension in his jaw long afterward. Wednesday brought the next blow. An email went out to the entire executive team, sent from Nora's account, questioning Draken's judgment on the Meridian acquisition and suggesting the numbers didn't add up. Polite, professional, and utterly damning. Nora discovered it when the CFO stormed into Draken's office mid-meeting, face red. She pulled up her sent folder in horror. There it was, time-stamped 2:14 a.m., when she'd been asleep in the guest wing. Draken read it over her shoulder, body rigid. I didn't write this, she said, voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. Check the metadata, the IP. Already done, he said. Same masked login. Leora's getting bolder. He called an emergency IT, lockdown, changed every password tied to Nora's credentials, and issued a company-wide retraction citing a security breach. The CFO accepted the explanation, barely, but the damage lingered. Whispers grew louder. That evening in the penthouse, Nora paced the living room, frustration boiling over. She's trying to make me look incompetent, or worse, disloyal. Draken stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, snow falling thick beyond the glass. She wants you gone. If she can prove you're a liability, the elders will force me to end this. Nora stopped pacing. And will they? He turned. No. Simple. Certain. Something in her chest unclenched. He crossed the room, stopping close. You're handling this better than most would. I'm furious, she admitted, but I'm not quitting. Good. His eyes searched hers. Because I need you. The words hung between them, heavier than strategy. Thursday morning, Leora herself appeared. She swept into the executive floor unannounced, designer coat over one arm, smile sharp as broken glass. Elena tried to intercept, but Leora brushed past with a murmured, "Clan business." She stopped at Nora's desk. "Nora, darling," she said, loud enough for nearby staff to hear. "We missed you at the conservation follow-up yesterday. Draken had to manage alone. Such a shame." Nora looked up calmly. There had been no follow-up meeting on the calendar. "I wasn't informed of any meeting," she said. "Perhaps check with scheduling next time." Leora's smile didn't waver. "Oh, it was last minute. Draken mentioned you'd been overwhelmed lately. Understandable, with all the adjustments." Several heads turned subtly. Nora stood, matching Leora's height and heels. "I'm managing fine, thank you. Draken and I communicate constantly." "Do you?" Leora tilted her head. "He seemed frustrated yesterday. Said something about missing files, unreliable support. Ring any bells?" Draken's office doors opened then. He took in the scene in one glance. Leora's triumphant posture, Nora's straight spine, the audience of staff pretending not to listen. "Leora," he said, voice lethally quiet. "My office. Now." Leora's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she glided past him. He looked at Nora. "You okay?" "Fine," she said. He nodded once, then closed the doors behind them. Through the glass, Nora saw Leora gesturing sharply, Draken standing like stone, arms crossed. The conversation was heated but soundproof. When Leora emerged 20 minutes later, her cheeks were flushed, eyes glittering with rage. She didn't look at Nora as she left. Draken returned to Nora's desk. "She won't touch your access again," he said quietly. "I've revoked her codes personally." Nora exhaled. "Thank you." He studied her face. "You're shaking." She glanced down, her hands were slightly. Adrenaline crash. Without a word, he took them in his large palms, warm and steady. "You stood your ground. Beautifully." The praise warmed her more than it should. "I hate games," she muttered. "I know." He brushed a thumb across her knuckles before releasing her. "But you're winning." That night, Nora worked late reconstructing the corrupted presentation from printed drafts and memory. At midnight, Draken appeared with takeout from her favorite Thai place and sat with her while she finished. When she saved the final version, triple backed up, encrypted, and emailed to herself, she leaned back and closed her eyes. "Tired?" he asked softly. "Exhausted." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on." She took it, letting him pull her up. Instead of releasing her, he led her to the couch by the fireplace, settled her into the corner, and draped a soft throw over her legs. "Rest," he said. "I'll handle the morning briefing." Nora wanted to protest, but her eyes were already heavy. The fire crackled, warm and soothing. Just before sleep claimed her, she felt his fingers brush hair from her forehead, gentle as a whisper. "You're stronger than she knows," he murmured. She wasn't sure if she dreamed the words or not. But when she woke hours later, covered with the throw and a pillow tucked under her head, Draken was asleep in the armchair across from her. Jacket off, tie loosened, keeping watch. The lie was getting harder to remember. And the truth was starting to feel like the only thing that mattered. Chapter 10. The First Trial. The invitation arrived by courier on a crisp Saturday morning. Heavy cream cardstock, embossed with the same coiled dragon symbol Nora had seen in Draken's ledger. Elegant script read, "The Council of Elders requests the presence of Draken Thorne and Nora Hale for the trial of insight, Blackwood Estate, 8 p.m. Draken's expression when he read it was unreadable. "Trial of insight," Nora repeated. "Sounds ominous." "It's the first of 3 formal tests," he said, folding the card with deliberate care. "They'll frame it as a charity auction, public, glamorous, safe. In reality, it's a stage for you to prove your mind is sharp enough to stand beside a dragon." Nora arched a brow. "And if I fail?" "They'll pressure me to end the engagement." He met her eyes. But you won't fail. His certainty steadied her more than it should have. The Blackwood estate was an hour north of the city. Stone mansion, manicured grounds, now dusted with snow, torches lining the long drive. Valets in black took the keys to Draken's sleek Aston Martin, and inside, the grand hall sparkled with crystal and candlelight. It was, indeed, a charity auction. Wildlife conservation again, but the guest list was exclusive. Old money, tech titans, a few politicians. And at the center table, on the raised dais, sat the elders and Leora, watching like hawks. Draken's hand rested at Nora's waist as they entered. She wore emerald silk tonight, chosen deliberately to match Leora's favorite color and steal a little of her thunder. Her chestnut hair was swept up, exposing the curve of her neck, the diamond studs at her ears catching the light. Heads turned, cameras flashed discreetly. They were seated at the elders' table. Strategic placement. Leora greeted them with a smile sharp enough to cut. "Nora," she said sweetly, "how brave of you to come." "I wouldn't miss it," Nora replied, matching the tone. The auction began innocently. Rare wines, vacation packages, a signed first edition Hemingway. Draken bid sparingly, winning a private safari experience with a lazy wave of his paddle. Then the auctioneer announced the evening's centerpiece. "A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," he boomed. "Exclusive development rights to the untouched coastal parcel in Costa Rica. Prime rainforest, pristine beaches. Bidding starts at $50 million. Paddles rose. The price climbed fast, 60, 70, 80. Nora leaned toward Draken. "That land's protected habitat for 3 endangered species. Thorne Enterprises donated to preserve it last year." He nodded almost imperceptibly. Leora raised her paddle at 90 million, eyes gleaming. 95 from a tech mogul across the room. 100 from Leora again. The auctioneer scanned the crowd. "Do I hear 105? Silence. Then Thorne, the silver-haired elder, turned to Nora with a pleasant smile. "Miss Hale, perhaps you'd like to weigh in. Draken values your insight, after all. Should he bid on this parcel?" Every head swiveled. The room quieted. This was the trial. Nora felt Draken tense beside her, but he didn't speak. She stood slowly, smoothing her gown, and addressed the room with calm confidence. "Thorne Enterprises has publicly committed to zero net habitat loss," she said clearly. "Bidding on protected land would contradict that pledge and invite scrutiny from regulators, investors, and conservation partners. More importantly, that rainforest is home to species on the brink. Once it's gone forever." She turned to the auctioneer. "I recommend withdrawing the lot. It shouldn't be for sale at all." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Leora's smile froze. The auctioneer hesitated, glancing at the elders' table. Thorne raised a hand. "The lady makes a compelling point. Lot withdrawn." Applause started, scattered at first, then thunderous. Several prominent guests nodded approval. Phones were already out, tweeting praise for Thorne's ethical stance. Leora looked like she'd swallowed glass. Draken's hand found Nora's under the table, squeezing once, pride and gratitude in the pressure of his fingers. Later, during dessert, Alara leaned over with a genuine smile. "Well played, child. Insight indeed." Thorne lifted his glass toward Nora. "1 trial passed. 2 remain." Leora said nothing, but her eyes promised retaliation. Outside, waiting for the car, snow fell in fat, silent flakes. Draken helped Nora into her coat, fingers lingering at her collar. "You were brilliant," he said quietly. "I meant every word." "I know." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You just saved something priceless, and you did it without raising your voice." She looked up at him, heart pounding for reasons beyond the victory. Team effort. His gaze dropped to her mouth. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, snow catching in his dark hair, his breath warm in the cold air. Then the valet pulled up, breaking the spell. In the car ride home, Nora's phone buzzed with alerts. Headlines already praising Draken Thorne's fiancée for her courageous intervention, stock futures ticking upward, conservation groups sending grateful statements. Draken read a few over her shoulder. "You've turned the narrative," he said. Leora's move backfired spectacularly. Nora leaned her head back against the leather seat. "Good. Let her stew." He chuckled, the sound low, warm, rare. When they reached the penthouse, he walked her to the hallway between their wings. "You should rest," he said. "You earned it." But neither moved to leave. Nora reached up, brushing a lingering snowflake from his lapel. "Thank you for trusting me tonight." His hand caught hers, holding it against his chest. She could feel the strong, steady beat of his heart. "I'm starting to trust you with more than strategy," he admitted, voice rough. The admission hung between them, electric. Nora's breath caught. She rose on her toes and pressed a soft, brief kiss to his cheek, the first time she'd initiated contact. "Good night, Draken." She slipped into her room before she could do something reckless. On the other side of the door, she leaned back, smiling into the darkness. One trial down, and the lines between fake and real were blurring faster than the snow outside. Chapter 11. Dragon Revealed. The crisis came without warning. It was a quiet Wednesday night in early February, 2 weeks after the auction triumph. Snow had turned to freezing rain, turning the city into a glittering, treacherous sheet of ice. Draken and Nora had stayed late at the office, finalizing a counter-strategy against Victor Kane's latest takeover maneuver. Quiet stock accumulations through shell companies. By 11 p.m., the tower was nearly empty. They packed up together, Draken insisting on driving her home himself rather than calling a car in the storm. The Aston Martin purred down the mostly deserted streets, wipers beating a steady rhythm against the sleet. Nora was reviewing notes on her tablet when Draken's phone buzzed in the console. He glanced at the screen, expression hardening. "Problem?" she asked. "Security alert at the upstate vault." His voice was tight. "Intrusion attempt. Kane's people, most likely." Nora's pulse kicked. The upstate vault was one of the off-books assets she'd glimpsed references to, listed in the ledger as a primary hoard repository. Dragon accelerated, taking the ramp onto the highway north. "We're closer than the response team. I need to handle this personally." "Oui," Nora corrected quietly. He shot her a look, but didn't argue. The drive took 40 tense minutes. By the time they turned onto a private, snow-covered road flanked by dense pines, the storm had worsened. Draken's property here was unmarked, a sprawling estate hidden behind wards and technology alike. The gates were open, forced. Draken swore under his breath and killed the lights, coasting to a stop behind a cluster of evergreens. In the distance, floodlights illuminated the main building, a restored stone manor with underground levels Nora had never seen. 3 black SUVs were parked haphazardly near the entrance. Figures in tactical gear moved in and out, loading crates into one vehicle. "They're taking artifacts," Draken growled. "Old ones. Dangerous in the wrong hands." Nora's heart pounded. "Call the police." "Human authorities can't handle this." He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, an unnatural storm-gray shimmer. "Stay here. Lock the doors." He was out of the car before she could protest, moving with predatory silence toward the manor. Nora lasted all of 10 seconds. She grabbed the heavy flashlight from the glove compartment and followed, boots crunching on ice. The cold bit through her coat, but adrenaline kept her moving. Inside the manor's side entrance, she heard voices, harsh commands, the clatter of metal. She crept down a dimly lit hallway toward the basement stairs. Then a shout, a gunshot. Nora's blood froze. She raced down the stairs into a vast underground chamber, stone walls lined with glass cases, artifacts gleaming under soft lights, coins, jewels, ancient weapons, and what looked like enormous iridescent scales. In the center, Draken faced 5 armed intruders. He was unarmed, suit jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled up, and utterly unafraid. One intruder raised a rifle. Everything happened at once. Draken moved faster than humanly possible, disarming the man in a blur. But another fired, a direct hit to Draken's shoulder. He staggered, blood blooming dark against his white shirt. Nora cried out. The intruders turned toward her. Time slowed. Draken's head snapped up. His eyes weren't gray anymore. They burned molten gold. Pupils slitted. A low, inhuman growl rumbled through the chamber, vibrating in Nora's bones. Then the shift began. His body arched, bones cracking and reforming in a surge of shadow and heat. Skin gave way to obsidian scales that shimmered with iridescent blues and purples. Wings unfurled, massive, leathery, powerful, claws extended, tail lashing. In seconds, where Draken had stood was a dragon, enormous, majestic, terrifying. The intruders screamed. The dragon roared, a sound of pure fury that shattered glass cases and sent men scrambling backward. One tried to fire again. The dragon's tail whipped out, sending the man flying into a wall. Another dropped his weapon and ran. Flames licked from the dragon's jaws. Not full fire, but enough warning to ignite crates and light the room in hellish glow. Nora stood frozen, flashlight clattering to the floor. The dragon turned its massive head toward her. For a heartbeat, terror gripped her. Then she saw the eyes, still storm gray at the center, ringed in gold. Still, Draken. He lowered his head slowly, wings folding, smoke curling from his nostrils. The remaining intruders fled up the stairs, abandoning their vehicles in panic. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of small fires. The dragon shrank, scales melting back into skin, wings retracting. In moments, Draken knelt on the stone floor, human again, bleeding from the shoulder wound, breathing hard. Nora ran to him. "You're hurt," she said, voice shaking as she pressed her scarf against the gunshot graze. "It's shallow," he rasped. "Heals fast." She looked up at him, tears stinging her eyes, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of what she'd witnessed. "You're a dragon." He searched her face, braced for rejection. "Yes. All this time, I tried to tell you." His voice was raw. "I wanted to wait until—" Nora cupped his face with trembling hands. "You protected me. You protected everything." Wonder replaced the shock in her chest. Draken closed his eyes briefly, leaning into her touch. "You're not afraid?" "I'm in awe," she whispered. He opened his eyes again, vulnerability stark. "The elders, the trials, the horde, it's all because of this. Because I'm the last of my direct line. They need me to mate, to continue." Nora pressed a finger to his lips. "We'll figure it out. Together." Sirens wailed in the distance, his security team finally arriving. Draken pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, despite the blood and chaos. "I was so scared you'd run," he admitted against her skin. Nora wrapped her arms around him, holding tight. "I'm not going anywhere." Above them, the storm raged on. But in the ruined vault, surrounded by ancient treasure and the warmth of his embrace, Nora felt something shift irrevocably. The fake engagement had just become the most real thing in her world, and the dragon who wore Draken Thorne's face had just claimed her heart completely. Chapter 12. Midnight Confessions. They returned to the penthouse just before dawn, both still wired from the night's chaos. Security teams had secured the vault, recovered most of the artifacts, and taken statements. The intruders, Kane's hired mercenaries, had vanished into the storm, but Draken's people were already tracking them. The gunshot grazed on his shoulder had healed to a faint pink line by the time they left, leaving Nora marveling silently at the impossible reality of him. Now, in the quiet expanse of the living room, The fireplace crackled softly. City lights glittered far below like scattered jewels. Nora kicked off her boots and curled into the corner of the couch, still in her coat. Draken disappeared briefly, returning with 2 glasses of amber liquid. Scotch. Neat. He handed her one and sat close, not touching, but near enough that she felt his warmth. For a long moment, neither spoke. Nora took a slow sip, letting the burn settle her nerves. "So," she said finally, "dragons are real." A faint huff of laughter escaped him. "Very. And you're how old exactly?" He met her eyes, steady. 347 this spring. She blinked. "Wow, you don't look a day over 35. The corner of his mouth lifted. "Flatterer." Silence fell again, softer this time. Nora set her glass down. "Why me, Draken? The fated mate thing you mentioned once. Does that only work with other dragons?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring into the fire. "Fated mates are rare, even among my kind. Blood calls to blood, but sometimes..." He glanced at her. "Sometimes it calls across species. I felt it the day you walked into my office for the interview. Like a pull behind the ribs. I thought I was imagining it." Nora's heart stuttered. "I felt something too. Static. Like recognition." He nodded slowly. "Your ancestry. There's dragon blood in it? Distant. Diluted over centuries. It's why the bond woke for me. Why I couldn't let you walk away." She absorbed that, the weight of centuries and fate settling over her like a blanket. "And the hoard?" she asked. "The vault? The ledger entries?" "Instinct," he said quietly. "Dragons hoard what we value. Gold, jewels, knowledge. For centuries, I turned mine into investments, companies, power. So I could protect what was left of my clan after the wars." His voice roughened. "I lost everyone. Parents, siblings, cousins. I've been alone a very long time." Nora reached out without thinking, covering his hand with hers. "Not anymore." He turned his palm up, threading their fingers together. "The elders want continuity. An heir with strong blood. They fear if I die without one, the line ends. And with it, the old magics tied to us." She squeezed his hand. "And Leora? She was your betrothed, arranged when we were young. I refused her when I came of age. She's never forgiven it." He exhaled. "She'll fight harder now that you've passed the first trial. And after tonight, Kane knows what I am. The danger's escalating." Nora shifted closer. "Then we face it together. Fake engagement or not." Draken's eyes darkened. "It stopped being fake for me weeks ago." The confession hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Nora's breath caught. "When?" "The night of the auction, when you stood up and spoke truth to power without flinching." He lifted their joined hands, brushing his lips across her knuckles. "Or maybe the night Leora poisoned the table and you outsmarted her. Or the 100 quiet moments since, coffee in the morning, your laugh when I attempt humor, the way you challenge me without fear." He paused, voice dropping to a whisper. "I don't know when, Nora. I just know I'm in love with you. Completely. Irrevocably." Tears pricked her eyes. She set her glass aside and moved into his arms, straddling his lap to face him fully. His hands settled at her waist, steady and warm. "I'm in love with you too," she said, the words trembling but sure. "Dragon, billionaire, grumpy CEO, all of it. I don't care about the trials or the danger. I just want you." Draken's eyes flared gold for a heartbeat, the dragon responding. Then he cupped her face and kissed her. Not the careful public brushes of before. This was deep, slow, consuming. Like he'd been holding back for months and the dam had finally broken. Nora kissed him back with everything she had, fingers threading through his dark hair, anchoring herself to him. When they broke apart, foreheads resting together, both were breathing hard. "I'll court you properly," he murmured against her lips. "No more pretending. When this is over, when Kane and Leora are handled, I'll ask you to marry me for real. If you'll have me." Nora smiled through happy tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He kissed her again, gentler this time, reverent. Eventually, he carried her to the rooftop terrace, wrapped in a thick blanket against the cold. The storm had passed. Stars glittered sharp and bright above the city. Draken stood behind her, arms around her waist, chin resting on her head. "One day soon," he said softly, "I'll take you flying. Just us. No danger. No audience." Nora leaned back against his chest. "I can't wait." They stayed there until the sky began to pale with dawn, sharing quiet truths and dreams neither had dared voice before. The fake engagement was over. What came next was real, and it felt like forever. Chapter 13. Corporate Attack. The attack hit at 3:17 a.m. on a frozen February night. Nora woke to the sound of Draken's low, furious growl from the living room. She threw on a robe and hurried out to find him at his desk, multiple screens glowing, fingers flying across the keyboard. "What's happening?" "Massive breach," he said without looking up. "Kane's people. They're dumping encrypted files to the dark web, Horde manifests, clan records, partial shift footage from the vault security cams. If it goes live, every hunter and black market collector on the planet will know exactly what I am." Nora's stomach dropped. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less. Our cybersecurity team is containing, but the leak's spreading through mirrored sites faster than we can shut them down." She pulled a chair beside him, logging into her own terminal. "Show me the breach pattern." For the next hour, they worked in intense silence. Draken directing his team remotely, Nora analyzing the leaked packets. She spotted something. Embedded metadata in the video files and pointing to a specific server farm in Eastern Europe. "It's a honeypot," she said suddenly. "They want us chasing the mirrors while the real payload sits here." She highlighted a dormant IP address buried in the code. "This is the master server. If we hit it directly, we can kill the source." Draken's eyes met hers, gold flickering at the edges. "You're sure?" "Positive, but we need a backdoor, something subtle." He nodded, already dialing his lead security tech. "We're going offensive." By dawn, Nora had crafted a custom worm, elegant, targeted, disguised as a routine update ping. Draken's team deployed it with her guidance. The master server went dark 20 minutes later, taking the entire leak network with it. But the victory was short-lived. At 8 a.m., as they finally collapsed on the couch with coffee, Draken's phone lit up with alerts. Major news outlets were running stories. Anonymous sources claiming Thorne Enterprises was involved in illegal artifact trafficking and environmental cover-ups. Stock opened down 12%. Kane was playing dirty, using the partial leak to seed doubt, even without the full supernatural proof. Draken's jaw clenched. "He's forcing my hand. Public denial won't be enough." Nora set her cup down. "Then we give them something else to talk about." She pulled up financial dashboards. "Look, Kane's consortium is over-leveraged. 3 of his major backers are pension funds with strict ESG mandates. If we expose that his hostile takeover is funded by offshore shells tied to habitat destruction in the Amazon, those funds pull out. His bid collapses." Draken stared at her. "You want to go public with counter-accusations." "I want to fight fire with fire." She met his gaze. "You protected your world last night. Let me protect ours now." He was quiet for a long moment, then, "Do it." The next 48 hours were a blitz. Nora led the charge. Anonymous tips to trusted journalists. Leaked documents carefully redacted to protect Dragon secrets. A press release from Thorne Enterprises highlighting Kane's environmental violations. She coordinated with the conservation board Draken sat on, rallying public statements from major NGOs. Draken handled the markets, strategic stock buys to stabilize price, personal calls to key investors reaffirming his commitment. And through it all, he was fiercely, openly protective. When a tabloid published Nora's home address with a headline screaming "gold digger" or "accomplice," Draken's security team moved within hours. New locks, discreet guards. Her old apartment sublet anonymously. When a drone buzzed the penthouse windows, trying for photos, Draken's eyes flashed gold as he watched it from the terrace. "I should end this," he growled. "One flight over Kane's estate and he'd never threaten you again." Nora slipped her arms around him from behind. "We're doing this the human way. Your way has waited centuries. It can wait a little longer." He turned, pulling her close. "You're the only thing I'm not willing to wait for." The counterattack worked better than they hoped. By Friday, 2 of Kane's backers withdrew publicly, citing ethical concerns. Stock rebounded. The smear stories lost traction against the mounting evidence of Kane's own misdeeds. Saturday morning, Nora woke to find Draken watching her sleep, perched on the edge of the bed, expression soft. "It's over," he said quietly. "Kane's bid is dead. He's retreating. For now?" She smiled sleepily, reaching for his hand. "We did it. You did it." He brought her hand to his lips. "My brilliant, fierce mate." The words sent warmth flooding through her. Later, on the rooftop under a weak winter sun, Draken wrapped her in his coat and held her against his chest. "I promised you flying," he murmured into her hair. "Soon, when the skies are clear and the world feels safe again." Nora tilted her head back to look at him. "I already feel safe because of you." He kissed her then, slow, deep, and full of everything they'd fought for. The corporate storm had passed, but a bigger one loomed: Leora's final move and the remaining elder trials. They would face them together. And whatever came next, Nora knew one truth above all. She was exactly where she belonged, in the arms of her dragon. Chapter 14. Leora's Last Stand. The final confrontation came on a moonless night, the kind where shadows swallowed the city whole. Nora had been reviewing elder trial protocols, ancient texts Draken had shared from his private library, when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. A single text: "Rooftop, Blackwood Estate, come alone, or Draken's horde goes public." She showed Draken immediately. His eyes flashed gold, dragon rising in fury. "It's a trap," he growled. "I'll end this now." "No." Nora gripped his arm. "The Elder's last trial is tomorrow. Trial of valor. If you attack her directly, they'll see it as weakness. Strip your leadership. Let me handle it. I've outsmarted her twice. Third time ends it." He paced, every muscle coiled. "She's a dragon, Nora. Silver scales, venomous claws. If she shifts, then I won't give her the chance." Nora held up her phone. "I've been tracking her digital footprints since the sabotage. She's sloppy when she's desperate. I'll record everything. Audio, video, geofence to send to the elders if anything goes wrong." Draken stopped, searching her face. "You're fearless. It terrifies me." She stepped close, cupping his jaw. "And you're my dragon. Trust me." He kissed her fiercely, then nodded. "I'm tracking your phone. 5 minutes late, I'm there." Nora drove north alone, the estate's gates creaking open as if expecting her. Snow crunched under her boots as she climbed to the rooftop terrace, torchlit stone overlooking frozen gardens. Leora waited in a silver fox coat, elegant as ever, a crystal goblet of red wine in hand. No guards, just her. "You came," Leora purred, eyes gleaming unnaturally in the dark. "Brave little human?" Nora stopped 10 feet away, phone hidden in her coat pocket, recording. "I'm here for your terms. End the leaks, the sabotage. Call off the Elder's pressure." Leora laughed, cold, crystalline. "Terms? Oh, darling, you're a distraction. Draken was mine for centuries. You're a whim he'll tire of when your fragile blood fails the final trial." Nora kept her voice even. "Jealousy doesn't suit you. The Elders respect strength. You've lost their favor. Thorne praised me twice. Even Alara smiled." Leora's smile vanished. She set the goblet down, shrugging off the coat. Beneath, she wore only silk, pale skin glowing faintly. They'll see your corpse and remember true power. Bones cracked. Scales erupted, sleek silver, shimmering like moonlight on ice. Wings unfurled, claws extended. Leora's dragon form was beautiful, deadly, lithe, venom dripping from fangs, eyes pits of rage. She lunged. Nora didn't run. She'd prepared. From her pocket, she triggered the device, a compact EMP emitter, custom-built from Draken's vault tech specs and her analyst skills. Purchased discreetly through dark web proxies, tuned to disrupt shifter physiology without harm. A pulse of blue energy rippled outward, silent, invisible. Leora's shift froze mid-leap. Scales receded in painful jerks, wings crumpling, body slamming to the stone as human. She writhed, gasping, venomous claws retracting harmlessly. "What did you do?" Leora snarled, struggling to rise. Nora stepped forward, phone out now, video clear. Leora's partial shift, the attack, the failure. Timestamped, geotagged, auto-uploading to the Elder's secure council server. Credentials Draken had given her post-reveal. Shifter, specific disruptor, Nora said calmly. Blocks the change for 30 minutes. Non-lethal, reversible. You just assaulted Draken's mate on sacred ground. Attempted murder in front of witnesses. She nodded to hidden security cams lining the rooftop, Elder's own. Leora's eyes widened in fury and fear. You wouldn't... It's already sent. Nora knelt slightly, voice steel. End it, Leora. Resign as envoy. Admit the sabotage to the Elders, or this goes public. Your humiliation, your treason. Dragons value honor. You'll be exiled. Leora spat venom, literally. A sizzling drop hitting stone, but stayed down, body trembling from the pulse. He'll never love you. You're weak, mortal. Nora smiled sadly. He loves me enough to trust me with this. That's your real weakness. You never trusted anyone but power. Sirens wailed in the distance, Draken's team right on cue. Leora slumped, defeated. Fine, I'll confess. Nora stood, backing away as security swarmed the roof. She didn't look back. Draken met her at the gates, pulling her into a crushing embrace before she could speak. You're safe, he breathed, checking her over. The Elders received the feed. Live. They're convening now. She leaned into him, adrenaline crashing. It's over. He kissed her temple, then her lips, fierce, grateful. My mate. My equal. Thorne's call came an hour later, voice approving. Leora stripped of rank. Trials complete. You've proven valor beyond blood. Back in the penthouse, Nora collapsed onto the couch, Draken drawing a hot bath for her. As steam rose, he knelt by the tub, washing snow from her hair with gentle hands. You saved us, he murmured. We saved us. She pulled him down for a kiss, water soaking his shirt. Heat built between them, kisses deepening, hands exploring with months of pent-up longing. Draken lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the bedroom. Clothes fell away in whispers of fabric. Their bodies met skin to skin, warm and urgent. He pulled her close, lips claiming hers in a kiss that promised everything. As passion peaked, the world faded, firelight dancing, hearts sinking. In the morning glow, they woke tangled together, closer than ever. Nora traced the obsidian scales faint on his shoulder, remnant of his dragon. Forever? She whispered. Draken kissed her ring finger. Forever. Leora's threat was ash. Their love was fire eternal. Chapter 15. After the storm. The morning after the rooftop confrontation dawned soft and golden, winter sunlight pouring through the penthouse windows like a blessing. Nora woke slowly, wrapped in Draken's arms, their bodies still tangled from the night before. His skin was warm against hers, the faint scent of cedar and smoke lingering. She traced lazy patterns across his chest, marveling at the steady thrum of his heart, ancient, powerful, and now entirely hers. Draken stirred, eyes opening to that familiar storm gray. A slow, devastating smile curved his mouth. "Good morning, mate," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. Nora's heart flipped at the word. "Good morning, Dragon." He rolled her beneath him in one fluid motion, kissing her deeply, slow, thorough, full of wonder and gratitude. When they finally broke apart, both breathing harder, he rested his forehead against hers. "I still can't believe you're real," he whispered. "That you stayed, that you fought for us." She cupped his face. "I've never felt more sure of anything." They stayed in bed far longer than responsibility allowed, trading soft kisses and quieter confessions, fears spoken aloud for the first time, dreams shared without reservation. When hunger finally drove them to the kitchen, Draken insisted on making breakfast. Perfectly cooked omelets, fresh coffee, stolen kisses between flips of the spatula. Over plates at the island counter, Nora's phone buzzed with a message from Thorne. "Council unanimous. Leora exiled, all trials waived. You are recognized as Draken's true mate. Welcome to the clan." She showed Draken. His eyes shone with emotion he rarely let show. "It's official," he said softly. "No more tests. No more threats." Nora set the phone down and moved into his lap, arms around his neck. "Then ask me properly." He stilled. "Here? Now?" She nodded, smiling through sudden happy tears. Draken slid from the stool, lowering to one knee, right there on the kitchen floor. Shirtless, hair tousled, more beautiful than any fairy tale. He took her hand. "Nora Hale, you walked into my world and turned it upside down. You saw the dragon and didn't flinch. You fought battles I never could have alone. You are my strength, my fire, my home." From his pocket he drew the ring. The same diamond that had started as part of a lie, now polished and reset, with tiny bronze scales etched along the band, matching what her own latent dragon might one day become. "Marry me," he said. "Not for elders or empires, just for us. Forever." "Yes," she whispered. "Always yes." He slipped the ring on, then rose to kiss her, tears mingling with laughter, joy bright enough to rival the sun outside. Later, curled together on the couch with fresh coffee, Nora traced the faint scar on his shoulder from the vault wound. "Tell me about flying," she said softly. "When will I see the sky with you?" Draken's eyes gleamed gold. "Tonight. Clear skies forecast. Just us." That evening, they drove north again, this time to a private mountain overlook far from city lights. Snow crunched underfoot as Draken led her to a clearing ringed by ancient pines. He kissed her once, tender and reverent. "Trust me." "I do." The shift was breathtaking in the moonlight, shadow and fire, obsidian scales gleaming, wings unfurling like midnight sails. The dragon lowered his massive head, nudging her gently. Nora climbed onto his back without hesitation, settling between ridges that fit her perfectly, as if made for her. Warm scales thrummed beneath her palms. With a powerful downstroke, they rose, wind rushing, stars wheeling overhead. The world fell away, city lights tiny below, mountains silvered with snow, the vast sky open and endless. Nora laughed in pure delight, arms spread wide as Draken banked gently, soaring over frozen lakes and silent forests. He rumbled beneath her, a deep, contented sound she felt in her bones. Higher they climbed until the air was thin and crisp, stars close enough to touch. Draken leveled out, gliding on thermals, wings steady. Nora leaned forward, pressing her cheek to warm scales. "I love you," she whispered into the wind. The dragon's answering roar was soft, joyful, triumphant. They flew for hours, until the moon began to set. Only then did he descend, landing gently in the clearing. The shift back was fluid, Draken human again, and catching her as she slid into his arms. Her legs trembled from cold and wonder. He wrapped his coat around her, holding her close. "How was it?" he asked, voice husky. "Like freedom," she said, "like coming home." He kissed her under the fading stars, deep, claiming, full of promise. Spring would bring a wedding, intimate, blending human vows and ancient dragon rites. Her firm's investment closed with glowing terms. The clan embraced her fully, and somewhere deep inside, Nora felt the first faint stirrings of bronze scales waiting to wake. But for now, there was only this: her dragon, her love, her forever. In Draken's arms, Nora Hale had found her wings, and she would never be grounded again. Chapter 16. Truth and Forgiveness. Spring crept into the city slowly. Cherry blossoms budding along the park, sunlight lingering longer each day. The penthouse felt like home now. Nora's books on the shelves beside Draken's ancient tomes, her coffee mug permanently beside his on the counter, quiet mornings tangled in sheets that smelled of both of them. But one secret still sat heavy in her chest. It was a Sunday evening in late March. They'd spent the day planning the wedding, small, intimate, blending human elegance with dragon tradition on the upstate estate. Draken had just shown her sketches of the ceremonial arch, obsidian and bronze intertwined, symbolizing their bond. They were curled on the couch, fire low, city lights sparkling below when Nora took a steadying breath. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. Draken muted the soft music playing and turned to face her fully, sensing the shift in her mood. "Anything." She sat up, folding her hands in her lap. "The day I interviewed, I wasn't just applying for a job. My firm, Hale and Associates, sent me undercover to evaluate Thorne Enterprises before deciding on the $2 billion investment. That's why I pushed so hard for the assistant role. I was supposed to observe, report back, stay objective." Silence stretched. Draken's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened slightly, storm clouds gathering. Nora forced herself to continue. "I submitted reports for the first few weeks. Neutral, then positive. After the gala, after everything started feeling real, I stopped. Told them I couldn't be impartial anymore. They weren't happy, but I'd already given them enough to greenlight the investment on merit." She met his gaze, heart pounding. "I should have told you sooner. I was afraid you'd think everything between us was part of the assignment, that I'd used you." Draken was quiet for a long, agonizing moment. Then he reached for her hand, threading their fingers slowly. "I knew," he said softly. Nora blinked. "You knew?" A faint, rueful smile touched his lips. "Dragon senses, remember? Heightened smell, hearing. I caught fragments of your phone calls early on. Saw the encrypted emails you thought you'd hidden. And Marcus Langford isn't as discreet as he thinks. I've known him for decades." She stared at him. "Why didn't you fire me? Confront me?" "Because from the first week, your reports were protecting me." His thumb brushed over her knuckles. "You flagged risks I'd missed, defended decisions the board questioned, and every day you chose to stay, even when you could have walked away with everything you needed." Nora's eyes filled. "I fell in love with you despite the assignment, not because of it." "I know." He cupped her cheek, wiping away a tear with his thumb. "I fell in love with you knowing the truth, waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me yourself." She laughed through the tears, a watery, relieved sound. "You impossible dragon. Centuries of patience, huh? Only for you." He pulled her into his lap, arms wrapping around her securely. "There's nothing to forgive, Nora. You chose me, over your career, your firm, everything. That's all I ever needed." She buried her face in his neck, breathing him in. "I was so scared you'd feel betrayed." "The only betrayal would have been if you'd left." He tilted her chin up, eyes fierce with love. "You're my mate. My heart recognized you before my mind caught up. Human secrets don't change that." Nora kissed him, soft at first, then deeper, pouring every ounce of relief and love into it. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. "Full disclosure over," she whispered. "No more secrets." None, he agreed, voice rough. Only truths from here on. They made love slowly that night, unhurried, reverent, every touch a promise kept. Draken whispered ancient dragon words against her skin, binding vows older than empires. Nora answered with her own, simple, human, eternal. In the quiet aftermath, limbs tangled, firelight dancing across obsidian, and bronze rings on their fingers, Nora felt the last shadow lift. The undercover assignment had brought her to him. Love had made her stay, and forgiveness, freely given before it was even asked, had made their bond unbreakable. Outside, spring rain began to fall, soft against the windows. Inside, two hearts, one ancient dragon, one fierce human, beat as one. Forever. Chapter 17. United Front. The final threat came not from Leora or the elders, but from Victor Kane himself. He had gone quiet after the failed takeover, licking his wounds in the shadows. But dragons, and their mates, are never truly safe when old enemies still breathe. It was early April, cherry blossoms drifting like pink snow along the city streets. Draken and Nora were finalizing wedding details. Date set for midsummer at the upstate estate when the alert hit Draken's secure network. A massive drone swarm, military grade, launched from a cargo ship in the Hudson, armed with incendiary devices and high-res cameras. Target, Thorne Enterprises Tower. Goal? Force a public shift, capture undeniable proof, destroy Draken's empire in the fallout. Kane's parting shot, expose the dragon or burn. Security teams scrambled, but the swarm was too large, too fast. Evacuation began floor by floor. Draken stood on the rooftop helipad, eyes glowing gold, wind whipping his dark hair. "I can end this," he said, voice low and lethal. "One flight, tear them from the sky." Nora gripped his arm. "And give Kane exactly what he wants. Video of a dragon over Manhattan. Panic, government hunts. Your clan exposed forever." He growled, dragon raging beneath his skin. "I won't let him touch you." "He won't." She pulled up her tablet, fingers flying. "I have a better way." In the weeks since Leora's defeat, Nora had quietly built something. A counter-drone system using Thorne's own satellite network and her analytical algorithms. Non-lethal, elegant, EMP pulses tuned to fry electronics without harming pilots or the city below. She'd never told Draken, meant it as a surprise safeguard for their future. Now it was their only clean shot. "Activate it with me," she said. "Your satellites, my code, together." Draken's eyes met hers, pride flaring bright. Together. They raced to the secure server room on the top floor. Nora uploaded the protocol while Draken authorized full satellite override. Screens bloomed with data, swarm trajectories, weak points, optimal pulse windows. The first drones crested the horizon, black swarm against the dawn sky, incendiaries glinting. "Now," Nora said. Draken hit execute. Invisible waves rippled outward. Drones faltered midair, engines dying, cameras blacking out. One by one, they dropped harmlessly into the Hudson, guided by fail-safe parachutes Nora had coded in. The entire swarm neutralized in under 90 seconds. No fire, no exposure, no casualties. Below, evacuated employees watched from safe distances as the threat simply vanished. Kane's ship tried to flee, but port authorities, tipped anonymously by Nora's earlier leaks, were already waiting. Federal charges for terrorism would keep him buried for decades. Back on the rooftop, wind calming, Draken pulled Nora into his arms. "You saved everything," he said against her hair. Again. "We saved everything," she corrected, smiling up at him. "Your power, my plan. Perfect team." He laughed, the deep, joyful sound she loved most, and kissed her under the rising sun. Later that day, headlines praised Thorne Enterprises' cutting-edge defense tech for averting disaster. Stock soared. The clan elders sent congratulations. Kane's defeat proved Draken's leadership and his mate's ingenuity beyond doubt. That night, under clear spring stars at their mountain overlook, Draken shifted. Obsidian scales gleamed as he lowered his wing for her. Nora climbed on, familiar now, settling between warm ridges. They launched into the sky, higher, faster than before. No danger chasing them, just freedom. Draken banked over the city lights, then north toward open wilderness. Nora leaned forward, arms spread, laughing into the wind. He rumbled beneath her. Contentment, love, triumph. They flew until the stars faded and dawn painted the horizon gold. When they landed back at the estate, Draken shifted to human and caught her as she slid into his arms. "Forever starts now," he whispered. Nora kissed him, heart full. "Forever started the day I walked into your office." The last threat was gone. Their united front had won. Not just the battle, but the future. Midsummer would bring vows under obsidian and bronze. But every day until then, and every day after, was already theirs. Dragon and mate. Fire and heart, eternal. Chapter 18. Real Feelings. The weeks leading to the wedding blurred into a whirlwind of joy and anticipation. Midsummer approached, and the upstate estate transformed. Gardens blooming with wildflowers, the obsidian bronze arch erected under ancient oaks, dragon runes etched subtly into stone for those who knew to look. Nora stood in the estate's sunlit library, flipping through a leather-bound album of Draken's past. Faded photos from the 1800s, sketches of long-lost clan members, glimpses of his solitary centuries. Her hand paused on a drawing of a young Draken, wings half-formed, eyes fierce yet lonely. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. Reminiscing? She leaned back into him, just realizing how much you've carried alone. Draken kissed her temple. "No more. You've changed everything." She turned in his embrace, smiling up at him. "And you're about to change me more." The latent dragon blood in her veins had stirred stronger since their first flight. Warm flutters in her chest, dreams of bronze scales and soaring winds. Draken had explained it gently. The bond would awaken her fully on their wedding night. A ritual merging their essences. "Not change," he murmured. "Awaken. You'll still be you. Fiercer. Freer." Nora's eyes sparkled. "Can't wait to fly beside you, not just on your back." He growled playfully, nipping her ear. "Careful. You'll tempt the dragon early." Laughter dissolved into kisses, heated, lingering, hands wandering with familiar ease. They broke apart only when Sadie, Nora's best friend and maid of honor, burst in with fabric swatches. "Save it for the honeymoon," Sadie teased, grinning. "Now, veil or no veil?" The afternoon passed in sweet planning. Guest lists blending human friends with clan elders, menu tastings of fire-roasted delicacies, Nora's gown fittings, a flowing white silk with bronze embroidery echoing her future scales. That evening, under a canopy of stars, Draken led her to the arch for a private rehearsal. "No audience yet," he said, pulling her close. "Just us." He took her hands, voice solemn. "In the old ways, we bind with blood and fire. But for you, I'll add human vows too." Nora's throat tightened with emotion. "I, Nora Hale, take you, Draken Thorne, dragon, billionaire, love of my life, to have and to hold, in scales or skin, through storms and skies, forever." Draken's eyes glowed gold. "I, Draken Thorne, take you, Nora Hale, my mate, my heart, my equal, to cherish and protect, in fire and flight, until the stars burn out." He pricked his thumb with a claw, pressing it to hers. A faint sting, then warmth spreading like liquid sunlight through her veins. The bond deepened, a golden thread weaving tighter. Nora gasped as the first real stirrings hit. Bronze flickers along her skin, a rush of power awakening. "It's starting," she whispered. Draken kissed her deeply, Soon, my love, you'll soar. They returned to the house hand in hand, the future bright and boundless. No more trials, no more secrets. Only love, fierce, eternal, ready to take flight. Chapter 19. Clan Acceptance. The day before the wedding, the clan arrived. They came not in private jets or limousines, but in silence, shadows slipping through the estate's ancient wards at dusk. Dozens of dragons, some in human form, others landing as majestic beasts on the wide lawns before shifting seamlessly into tailored suits and flowing gowns. Obsidian, silver, emerald, gold, scales fading into skin, wings folding away like secrets. Nora stood on the terrace overlooking the gathering, hand resting on the stone balustrade. Draken was beside her, arm around her waist, steady as always. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "A little," she admitted. "They're accepting me because of you. What if they see me as the outsider who changed everything?" He turned her to face him. "They're accepting you because of you. You passed trials no human ever has. You defeated Leora. You protected the Horde and the Veil. They're here to honor their future queen." Queen. The word still felt surreal. Below, Thorne approached the terrace steps, silver hair catching the torchlight. Alara walked beside him, along with elders Nora recognized, and many she didn't. Younger dragons, too. Children with curious eyes, couples holding hands. Thorne stopped at the base and bowed, deep, formal. Draken Thorne, last of the obsidian line, and Nora Hale, awakener of bronze. His voice carried, warm and resonant. The clan gathers to welcome the mate who has proven worthy in insight, resilience, and valor. We offer our loyalty, our protection, and our joy. One by one, the dragons knelt or bowed, human and shifted alike. A ripple of wings and lowered heads across the lawn. Nora's throat tightened. She looked at Draken, eyes shining. He squeezed her gently. "Go to them." She descended the steps alone, Draken a step behind. When she reached Thorne, he took her hands in his ancient ones. "You carry old blood," he said softly. "Diluted, but true. Tonight, under the solstice moon, it will sing fully. And tomorrow, you will rise as one of us." Alara stepped forward next, placing a delicate circlet of intertwined obsidian and bronze on Nora's brow. "A gift from the matriarchs," she said, "worn by every queen since the first flight. Welcome home, child." Tears slipped down Nora's cheeks as more clan members approached, offering tokens, words of welcome, stories of their own matings. A young girl with emerald eyes shyly handed Nora a single bronze scale shed from her first shift. "For luck," the child whispered. By the time the stars wheeled overhead, Nora's heart was full to bursting. She had expected tolerance, perhaps grudging respect. Instead, she received family. Later, around massive bonfires on the lawn, stories flowed, ancient battles, lost hordes, first flights. Draken sat with her on a wide bench, her back against his chest, his arms around her. An elder told of a time when human-dragon bonds were common, before fear drove the clans into hiding. "You remind us of what we almost lost," he said, raising a glass to Nora. "Hope." Music started. Low drums, flutes carved from dragon bone. Couples danced under the moon, some shifting mid-twirl to spiral into the sky together, wings catching starlight. Draken stood, offering his hand. "One dance before tomorrow." Nora took it, letting him lead her into the circle. They moved slowly, close, foreheads touching. Inside her chest, the bronze warmth flared brighter, responding to the clan's energy, to the nearing ritual, to the dragon holding her like she was his entire world. "I can feel it," she whispered. "Stronger every hour." Draken's eyes glowed softly. "Tomorrow night, when we speak the binding words, it will fully awaken. You'll shift for the first time under the solstice moon. And I'll be right there, catching you if you wobble." She laughed, the sound light and free. I'll probably crash into a tree. Then I'll catch the tree too. They danced until the fires burned low, and the clan drifted to guest houses or took wing into the night sky. Alone again on the terrace, Draken pulled her close. You're not just joining my clan tomorrow, he said. You're becoming my everything. Scales or skin, earth or sky. Nora rose on her toes to kiss him, soft, lingering, full of promise. And you're mine, she whispered against his lips. Forever starts at sunrise. Inside, the bronze fire in her veins answered with a joyful flare. Tomorrow, she would rise. Tomorrow, she would fly. And the clan, her clan, would soar with her. Chapter 20, Eternal Flame. Midsummer's Eve arrived in a blaze of golden light and warm breezes. The estate glowed. Lantern strung through ancient oaks, wildflowers carpeting the grass, the obsidian and bronze arch standing proud at the center of a natural amphitheater carved into the hillside. Human guests mingled with clan members, some in elegant attire, others subtly revealing scaled accents on cuffs or necklaces that caught the sun. Nora stood in the bridal suite, Sadie adjusting the final fold of her gown, flowing white silk embroidered with delicate bronze scales that shimmered like living metal. A circlet of the same intertwined metals rested on her chestnut waves, veil optional and discarded. She wanted nothing between her and the sky tonight. You're radiant, Sadie whispered, eyes misty, and about to marry a literal dragon. Still processing that. Nora laughed softly. Me too, every day. A knock sounded. Thorne and Alara, acting as her escorts in place of parents. They offered arms with solemn grace. Ready, child? Alara asked. Nora took a deep breath, feeling the bronze fire in her veins surge in answer. Ready? Music rose as she stepped outside. Flutes and drums woven with the low hum of dragon song. Guests turned. Draken waited beneath the arch in flawless black tuxedo tailored to his powerful frame, obsidian scales subtly etched into the lapels. His eyes locked on her and flared gold, breath catching visibly. He looked like every dream she'd never dared have. Thorne and Ilara placed her hands in Draken's. The elders formed a circle around them, clan beyond, human and dragon together. Thorne spoke first in the ancient tongue, voice carrying on the wind, words of binding, fire, flight, eternity. Then he switched to English for the human guests. Today, we witness the union of Draken Thorne, guardian of obsidian flame, and Nora Hale, awakener of bronze heart. Two souls, one destiny. Draken's vows came low and steady, meant for her alone, yet heard by all. Nora, you are my sky, my fire, my reason. I vow to fly with you, shield you, love you in every form, through centuries and storms. You are my horde, my heart, my forever. Nora's voice trembled with joy. Draken, you are my strength, my wonder, my home. I vow to challenge you, soar with you, love you without fear or end. In scales or skin, in earth or sky, you are my forever. They exchanged rings. His a band of pure obsidian veined with bronze. Hers, the reverse. When the ring slid home, warmth exploded through Nora's chest, bronze fire racing along her veins, visible as faint, glowing patterns beneath her skin. Thorne smiled. The bond accepts. Seal it. Draken cupped her face and kissed her, deep, claiming, full of centuries of waiting and all the promise of tomorrow. The clan roared approval, some shifting mid-sheer, wings unfurling in celebration. As the kiss broke, the solstice sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in fire. Thorne raised his hands. Now, under the midsummer moonrise, the maid awakens. Guests parted, forming a wide circle. Draken stepped back, eyes shining with pride and love. Trust the fire, he said softly. I'm right here. Nora closed her eyes. The bronze heat surged, bones singing, skin shimmering. She felt herself expand, grow, change. Scales erupted in warm copper-bronze waves, wings unfurling with a snap of power. Claws extended, tail balanced. In moments where the bride had stood was a sleek, elegant bronze dragon, smaller than Draken's obsidian form, but fierce and beautiful, hazel eyes glowing. The clan erupted in joyous roars and wing beats. Draken shifted beside her, massive obsidian dragon, wings spreading wide. He lowered his head, nuzzling her gently, rumbling deep contentment. Their first flight as mates began with a running leap off the hillside, bronze and obsidian rising together into the twilight sky. The clan followed in a spiral of wings and fire, celebrating with loops and dives under emerging stars. They flew until the moon hung full and silver, then returned to the clearing. Shifts reversed in ripples of light, Draken catching Nora as she stumbled slightly on new instincts. Human again, laughing and breathless, they faced their guests for feasting, dancing, toasts that lasted until dawn. Later, in the private wing of the estate, honeymoon suite aglow with candles, Draken carried her over the threshold. "My wife," he whispered, laying her on silk sheets. "My mate." Nora pulled him down, fingers tracing the scales faint on his skin. "My husband," she answered, "my dragon." They came together slowly, worshipping, exploring, the bond flaring bright between them. Passion, built like fire, cresting in waves that left them trembling and complete. In the peak, bronze and obsidian lights danced across the walls, magic sealing eternal. Afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, Nora rested her head on his chest. "Forever feels perfect," she murmured. Draken kissed her hair. "Forever is just the beginning." Outside, the clan's distant songs drifted on the summer wind. Inside, two dragons, one ancient, one newly awakened, slept in each other's arms. The flame was eternal, and it burned brighter than ever. Epilogue. 1 year later. Midsummer again, the estate bathed in golden warmth. Nora stood on the wide terrace overlooking the gardens, one hand resting lightly on the gentle curve of her belly. The bronze scales that sometimes shimmered faintly beneath her skin caught the sunlight, a subtle reminder of the dragon she had become. Inside her, a new life stirred, tiny, fierce, already dreaming of wings. Draken approached from behind, arms sliding around her, palms joining hers over the small swell. He pressed a kiss to the curve of her neck, right where her pulse beat strong and steady. "How are my mates today?" he murmured, voice low and content. "Impatient," Nora said with a soft laugh. "This little one keeps practicing flips. I think they're ready to fly before they're even born." Draken's chuckle rumbled against her back. "Takes after their mother. Fearless from the start." Below them, the clan gathered once more. Smaller this time, intimate. Sadie chased her toddler with a laughing clan child who had already mastered partial shifts, tiny emerald wings fluttering. Thorne and Alara sat beneath the great oak, telling stories to wide-eyed hatchlings. The air smelled of pine, wildflowers, and wood smoke from the evening's bonfire. A year had passed since their wedding. A year of soaring side by side under endless skies, of building new wards around the hoard vaults with Nora's clever human tech woven into ancient dragon magic, of quiet mornings in the penthouse and wild nights over mountain peaks, of learning each other in every form, human tenderness, dragon fire. The world had stayed blissfully unaware. Cain rotted in federal prison. Leora's exile held. The clan thrived, stronger, more united, with fresh hope in every new bonding. Nora turned in Draken's arms, hazel eyes meeting storm gray. "Happy?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. He kissed her slowly, thoroughly, the way that still made her heart race. After 348 years of his waiting and one perfect year of their forever. "More than I ever dreamed possible," he said against her lips. A sudden flutter inside her made them both still. Draken's hands spread wider, eyes widening in wonder as the baby kicked again, strong, insistent. Nora grinned. Think they'll be obsidian or bronze? Doesn't matter, he whispered. They'll be loved, and they'll have the sky. That night, after the bonfire stories and songs, Draken and Nora flew alone. Bronze and obsidian rose together into a star-drenched sky, wings beating in perfect sync. They spiraled higher, dancing on warm updrafts, tails twining briefly in playful affection. Below, the estate lights twinkled like their own private hoard. Above, the universe stretched endless and welcoming. Nora roared, a bright, joyful sound that echoed across the mountains. Draken answered, deep and triumphant. Their child would be born into a world of fire and flight, love and legacy. The fake engagement that began it all was now a distant, fond memory. What remained was real, eternal, and just beginning.